Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the MetaManiacs Show. I'm your host, Dan Green, and I am here today with my lovely co-hosts. We have Dillan Straube
Hello.
and Jordan Syverson today.
Welcome.
Today we are talking about tilting. For people who are unfamiliar with the terminology, tilting in games, trading card games, lots of different kinds of games, is when you are emotionally affected by the game in some way, usually in a negative way, to the point where you sort of lose your focus, you lose control, and usually it means you're going to perform worse. It's something that definitely can happen a lot to people in trading card games, because trading card games have, of course, a lot of random elements in them. And it can be caused by your opponent maybe psyching you out in some way, some sort of psychological game that they're using to try and gain an advantage. And it is obviously generally best avoided. We all have played trading card games for a while and have maybe a little bit of advice for anyone who wants to avoid tilting so much. And today we're just going to talk about how you can avoid tilting. So I'm going to start with, let's shake it up. I'm going to start with the lower right corner here. Start with Jordan. Jordan, go ahead and give us your tips on avoiding tilting.
Well, my tips are #GetGood.
All right, guys, that was another episode of the MetaManiacs Show.
Nice and quick every time with Jordan.
No, but
I made that joke 2 episodes in a row, though, so I can't do it again.
But one of the things that I've been doing, mainly after we kind of started MetaManiacs, is when we play, obviously we want to shell the brand out a bit. So we have these stickers, and I take a deep breath if something terrible happens during the game. And then I'll give my opponent the sticker, and then kind of talk about MetaManiacs and get them on board with our content. And that gives me time to kind of decompress and to talk about something I do like, which kind of helps pull me out of that mood. Before MetaManiacs, I do something similar where, I just take a deep breath. I'd, shake my opponent's hand, be like, you played good. Even if I think they didn't, I'll still tell them that because it's a good sportsman, and realistically, they did play good. I was just not happy with the outcome. Whether it was myself being the issue, because that happens a lot, as you guys can attest to. I don't get mad at my opponents most of the time. If someone outplays me, I like it. It gets exciting. I get excited for them. But the thing that really tilts me is when I personally mess something up. And there's been times where I'll mess something up that's very, very obvious, and I just get real down and mad at myself. But I'll just take a deep breath. I decompress. I'll shake my opponent's hand, tell them good game, and I'll maybe go outside, get some fresh air, think about what I did wrong, and then I try to work towards what I can improve so that a mistake doesn't happen again in the future. And that gets me kind of excited to play the next game, because then I have something to look out for. So in the next game, I'm like, okay, my focus this game is to not do X thing again. And it shifts me from being angry to being focused, which helps me in the end.
I want to talk about the first method you brought up, because I
Getting good.
So, what's that?
You're going to talk about getting good?
No, sorry, the second one. You know what? Obviously, if you're good, then you're going to be tilting less. I think that's just how a given. But no, Jordan, you mentioned that one thing you started doing after we kind of began the MetaManiacs project was we had all these stickers we were giving out to people after we played games, just to try and spread brand awareness and hook people up with what we think are cool little stickers. And I remember when you came back and you told me after one of these first major events where you're doing that, and you told me actually it was really great to have a way to get your head out of just focusing and repeating over and over the play that you made or something where you screwed up, or the randomness that happened where you just feel like it was unfair and you had that game if that hadn't happened or whatever. And I think in general, obviously you don't have to have a TCG channel in order to do that, but just having something that some sort of ritual, some sort of habit that you do after you play the game to interact with your opponent and just push away the thought of that negative experience you had and focus on something that's positive and constructive with them. Is it just a great way to just completely escape that tilting, at least between rounds of a tournament? Dylan, what do you have for us?
Actually, first, I always do this in every single episode. I piggyback off of somebody else's argument, like the first
No, that's
first
great.
thing I say. For me, actually, like I need to like be like focused, and I'm not sure how many people like can relate to that. But like if I pull myself out of the game, like in between rounds, I find it being detrimental to like my focus overall through games, because a lot of the times, like round one, I'm like, all right, getting things kind of set up, getting into the competitive. That's why a lot of times before games, like or before big tournaments, I'll play a few starter games like at the hotel or at my Airbnb beforehand, just so I can like get in like, okay, I'm playing chess today. You know, like that's my objective. So like the stickers, like, you know, you hand them to me and like I'll have them, but generally I'll like before a round I'll be like, hey, you know, if you want, check us out sometime, and then I'll like. But it's generally like a very small thing, or if I'm in like side events, I'll do it. But whenever it's a big tournament event, I have a hard time pulling myself away to do that. So like for me, using that as a method of relieving tilting, which if you ask people that know me, they know I can get extremely tilted with video games. I don't get incredibly tilted with card games, and I think that's all about. Which I think you two were alluding to, is again, we've covered this mentality. Now, I've found self-meditation to be an extremely effective way to relieve stress when you're having a hard time performing. In particular, and I mentioned this a couple episodes ago, in the Final Fantasy TCG North American event, in the championships, it was a 2-deck format. I brought 2 decks. One deck I didn't lose a single game with the entire day, and it was just like a wash. I brought a mono win deck. I was extremely comfortable on it. I had won a local event with it, my first big event with it, and I just tore through competition with that. It performed perfectly. The other deck, both of which I built, I just don't think was the call for the day. And it really wasn't performing well. So like imagine yourself in a position you're like, all right, I'm in this, I'm a high tier player, I'm kicking ass, you know, I'm taking names and doing well. One is proving that, and the other deck feels like, and it's not, right? But like, you know, sometimes you get emotionally invested and it feels like it's disproving that. And so my second deck, which is like an aggro mid-range deck, just really wasn't performing well. Fire Ice Category 6 for any Final Fantasy listeners out there. It just wasn't performing well in an environment where you played against a heavy control or a constant burn deck. So after like 3 rounds of one deck just cleaning house in like 20 minutes, because I believe we had an hour round to get best of 3 done all day. So, or it might have been an hour and a half, whatever. So after like 3 to 4.5 hours of one deck's just cleaning clocks and the other deck is just dumpstering, you know, like the other deck is just not performing well, I was getting really tilted. Like I was really upset, and I handled myself well at the table, but I like walking away after like that third round of like. Because, so, you know, you had to win one game with both decks. So I would win my first game, no question, with my mono win deck. And then my second and third game would be like, okay, I would lose and it would be so close. And then I would lose again and I would lose and it'd be so, you know what I mean? So like that kept happening where I kept playing 2, like out of every game, I played one where I just like cleaned up. And then I played 2 games where it was just a struggle. And that got to me emotionally. So I walked away from the event during lunch. I went upstairs to my hotel, actually, and I fucking just, I screamed. Like, I went to the hotel, I like went in the thing, I screamed into a pillow. I was like tearing up, crying, like, you know, like, I didn't cry, but I was like as close as you can be without, you know. It was really upsetting. And I talked to one of our roommates, Kaz from Minneapolis, and he was like, "Hey man, you know, I understand it's okay. You know, it's you know, you just gotta just get some food in you, take a moment, and reset." And I think I knew I had to do that. But having a friend bring that to me pulled me back in. And it really allowed me to recenter. And the rest of the day, I kicked butt. The rest of the day, the one deck was still struggling, as we talked about performance before. But I was winning more often than I was losing with the second deck, and it really helped me recenter. So from somebody who has like lost the game of Tilt, and albeit an extremely like relatable and frustrating scenario, sometimes I would say that it's out of your control. I mean, everything begins and ends with you, but it's good to know that if you're with people, which generally I would say most people who travel to these events don't travel alone, generally. No matter how hard it can be for your pride, and believe me, I have a lot of it. Just being open and letting other people kind of take some of that burden off your shoulders is I would say the most effective way to combat tilting. And it's really nice, which is why I think every event should have a lunch break. I think it's really nice to have a moment to step out. Hello, kitty. To step out of the environment. Because I think what Jordan was saying is like, it allows him to take himself mentally out of the environment every round and introduce people to MetaManiacs. Well, if I do that, every round, I'm constantly like turning on and off. But like having a sort of break to be like, okay, this is my time to relax again, and now it's game time again. Like, having that mental reset to relax for a moment, I think can really improve relative levels of tilt and mental fatigue over an entire day. So whatever you guys have to say. Sorry, that was a long spiel, but it was a really relevant and like physically upsetting time for me, and an overall very proud event. So
I think, I think you had, it was a great little monologue for sure. You had a lot of really good points. Camaraderie is critical, for sure. It's so much easier to take on emotional burdens when you have someone helping you, and that applies to tilting in card games just as much as it applies to basically anything in life, really. And which is why I have my cat here with me to help me out during this podcast recording.
It'll be okay, Dan. Thanks, Keith.
And there he goes, shaking my camera. And the other thing is, I totally agree with you on lunch breaks. I think they're critical, and it's unfortunate when scheduling just isn't permitting an event to kind of make that work. But I think that's something that card games should be considering in their tournament organization guidelines in general. It's a thing where it's much easier to for a card game company to work that into their suggested structure for an event than it is to rely on a card shop to try and make it work when maybe if a card game company isn't thinking about that, their policies for round length and everything might not be conducive to having a lunch break in a day. It's not trying to blame a card shop necessarily, but sometimes they're just trying to work with what they can. They're told we need to do an 8-round event, and every round is an hour and 15 minutes or something, and we don't want it to go to 2 a.m. so we have to like make it work somehow.
Software crashes, people have interruptions,
and they're always longer than whatever the length of the round is. So
every round always goes to time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I wanted to just include a few thoughts on my own, and one is you guys I think really covered well the idea of just kind of ways, and depending on your personality, how you can approach dealing with tilt in between rounds. But I think sometimes what really is tough to deal with is tilt in between games in a best out of 3 match.
Mm-hmm.
You can, and that's debatably more important depending on what you're dealing with during a tournament day. But when you get to that, like, let's say you're in the finals match of the big tournament, and like, this is the one where if you win this match, you win everything versus just like the second place prize or whatever.
Or the all elusive bubble match.
Oh yeah. Or definitely the bubble match. You find yourself on the bubble, and for people who are unaware with that terminology, it means if you win this round, you're going to be making it into whatever top cut. If you lose, you're probably going to be cut out of it.
And you get a pack.
And a lot of times, that's generally, in my opinion anyway, in my experience, that always feels more stressful than like if you were in the top seat. Because like if you're in finals, it's like, well, I'm still getting second. Like you still get a fair amount, but like with the bubble, it's like the difference between getting participation and getting actual prizes.
And the pedigree.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is, in those matches, you're typically more on edge than you are in the regular Swiss rounds throughout the day. You're more prone to suffering from loss of emotional control, because you're just more stressed out. Your nerves are taxed because you know how important this is in the event. And what I want to share with you guys is a tip that I got from actually a local Magic player here who became a professional Magic player, Brad Nelson. He once shared with me as I was going into a big event at a Grand Prix that I was performing decently well at. He said, "Here's the thing: you can always ask to go to the bathroom, and if you're suffering from tilting, and ideally." You want to do this in between games just to not make things look weird or whatever. But you finish a game and you just lost the game, and you are tilting hard, and you're just like, his deck, maybe it's like a draft, and like, how do you get all those great cards? And like, I just feel like I'm outmatched here, and I don't see how I'm going to win this or whatever. Just for whatever reason, you're tilting, and the key is, as you guys said, it's mentality. You have to be able to catch this yourself, and if you're not self-aware enough to notice that you're tilting, that's an area that is definitely something you can work on and improve yourself and improve your performance overall. But you notice it, you ask a judge, I need to run to the bathroom quick. Is that okay? And they're going to let you. No one's going to say, no, you got to sit there. And like, I guess I can't speak for all tournaments and tournament guidelines, but in Magic, you definitely could do that. You go to the bathroom, even if you don't have to. You splash some water on your face. You just take a moment. It's a place where your opponent isn't there. You can breathe. You can recenter yourself. You can find yourself. Maybe even, maybe you've got some friends you traveled with and they're aware of this and they were watching your game, and maybe they'll like follow you with, and then you can have a little pep talk like Dillan was saying, and just kind of like get yourself in a little nice relaxing massage. But that kind of stuff really can help. It really can you just to lower your tension, which can be like physically manifesting in yourself as well. And then once you've taken a breather, you head on back, you sit down, and you've just gotten yourself a moment of sort of almost meditation, bathroom meditation, we're going to call it, where you were able to just be alone and refocus and find that focus on strategy, skill, and winning that you needed, and not be thinking about luck and randomness or whatever your opponent was doing to you that caused you to tilt, or whatever misplay you were focusing on that caused you to tilt yourself. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is the biggest piece of advice that I've given to basically anyone who I've talked to who's been like going into a major event. I always try to find a time to tell them, hey, don't forget to just go to the bathroom if you need to. And just, well, actually, another good piece of advice is don't forget to actually go to the bathroom throughout the day, because that's important too. But using a bathroom break to just refocus yourself in between games in a round can completely change the outcome of that match for you.
For sure.
And I think that's an important piece of advice to have. Go ahead, Dylan. What do you got?
Okay, so actually on that, I think there's one thing that we haven't touched on at all yet out of the three of us, and that's preparation.
Absolutely.
A big portion of it is going in and like having these things in check, right? So like I said, well, some people don't. A lot of the times, even if you're confident, having a friend there to talk to, like knowing who you go to, right? Like I know that I can go to Jordan, and Jordan will be there and be like, yeah, dude, no worries, just kill it. Come on, you're good. Get good. Let's go. You're good. Like I can talk to Jordan, he can do that for me. So I don't have to if you're already mentally kind of estranged when you're in an upset and in a moment like that. And sometimes having the steps, just you don't have to make a list or anything like that. But okay, what do I do if I'm getting upset? Even if you're not somebody to get upset, you go, okay, before the event, before round one, before the day of, actually, I would highly recommend before the day. On the way down there, just think, what if things don't go my way? How will I handle that? How will the people around me handle that? And that's where I would bridge into my second point that I didn't mention, where I've recently gotten into back into weightlifting and working out. And there's all sorts of motivational things that people will tell you. And I think one of them that actually translates extremely well is that people get performance anxiety. And even though it's a one-on-one event, one-on-one on one-on-one, but you're in a room of 128 people or 30 people or however many, and sometimes because you're putting yourself out there and you're displaying your skill, and Jordan's talked about randomness and how that varies, but you are putting yourself on display because at any point in time somebody can look over and see what you're doing. And on stream matches, this is one thing where people get really kind of pulled over on is stream matches, which I think that would be a great thing to say. But and some people have a really hard time coping with that performance anxiety that comes with it, and that can lead to an extreme like where if you're playing at my house and we're just playing at the table, it's not a big deal. But as soon as you're at an event, you're in the moment, you kind of feel like you're in the ring, right? You get hyped up, and now every high is really high and every low is just a gut punch. It's important to remember that your biggest critic is you, and nobody else in that gym room is going to look at Jordan and say, wow, he's only bench pressing 120 pounds. Wow, he's only nobody's going to look through there. Nobody cares what you bench press. Nobody cares what you lift. Nobody cares. People aren't going there to judge you. People are going there to perform their best. And if they're not, screw them. If they're there just to, turn their nose up and look down on you, to hell with them. They're not worth your time or your mental awareness. Most of the people in a truly competitive environment are there for that reason only. It's to compete and to revel in the thrill that comes with competition and improvement and measuring themselves against other people, like Goku. It's just important. And Mike would go, wait. I like to have fun too. So I'm just gonna throw that in there.
We did get Mike in this episode.
Yeah, wait. I like to have fun too. Also, key lime pie. So. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, mentally preparing yourself is also as important. I would say it is just as important as having mental fortitude. And the world begins and ends with you. So it's okay to mess up. It's okay to let your feelings go a little wild. But know that people aren't there to judge you. And people aren't there to make fun of your play. And not that they won't. I've been teased before for misplays and dumb stuff that I've done, and I've teased people for why would you ever play why would you ever let him play Blue Head Knock? Mitch and Cole talk all the time about in a Dragon Ball Z regionals where Cole played a card that revealed Mitch's hand. So he played a card that revealed Mitch's hand. I'm not going to have to explain every card, and you can take one card out of that hand. So sorry, Mitch did that to Cole. And Mitch looks at Cole's hand, and he sees all of these things, and he goes, that's not going to be a problem. So he sets that down. And so he plants a mental seed in the guy's head that that there's no value to playing that card. And then he gives his hand back. Well, in doing so, Cole doesn't attack with that card, which the damage isn't what was going to hurt. It was it was enabling a different win condition that otherwise would have lost Mitch the game. So Cole's no, I should have done that. Why did I ever listen to you? Which is a whole topic on metagaming. But it's funny to tease people and stuff. But nobody's there to truly just critique and hurt you. And it's really in here. So mentality and prep.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Preparation. Oh, go ahead, Jordan.
I was saying, just to bounce off that topic, if you don't believe us that no one's really there to critique you, think about what you do during a tournament. How often during your entire 8-hour or like 5-hour tournament are you looking at other people and thinking what they're doing is dumb? 9 times out of 10, 95% of the time of what you're doing is focused on your board and what you're doing. Most of the time, you don't even realize there's so many games you play, and you'll look up and you're like, oh, we're the only people still at the table like playing. And people are like, yeah, we've all been done for like 20 minutes. And it's like, how often do you look at other people's games and then think of that's how everyone else lives their life too? Like, they're more focused on what they're doing. They probably don't even notice you're there at the time.
People are selfish.
Yeah, obviously it's unavoidable when you get to that, like, it's the top 3 or whatever, because then everyone at the tournament is waiting and watching. But it's a different situation. And
some people get turned on by those moments. Like me, I love being on stream. Because I'm like, oh man, I'm here. It's my moment. It's my moment, and I'm here to grasp it. But I mean, it's different for other people. So I just thought that was a weird thing to throw out. Like, if I'm at the top table, I'm like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, you're riding on the rush.
Everyone's got a different. Everyone's got a different personality and a different take on, what works for them and what doesn't. And I think that's an important takeaway from this entire conversation is just that. First of all, different things are going to tilt different people. Tilting is something that happens. Being emotional about your gameplay is something that just happens to everybody. We're not saying at all that you need to cool off and quit worrying, and it's not a big deal, because like you're saying, we're there to compete. And that's the whole goal of going to a major event. Yes, we want to have fun. We're playing the game because we enjoy it. But when you're you're spending time and money to go to this place to compete, you're there because you want your performance to be good. Mm-hmm. That's the whole reason. Otherwise, you would have just been like, I'll just play some games at home. You wouldn't have gone in the first place.
Yeah, like no one goes to a tournament being like, oh, let's go. I just want to go and go X, 0x. That's my goal.
Hey, sometimes I like to do that.
No.
Mike understands too. Mike's very competitive.
Yes,
Mike is he'll just enjoy whatever's in front of him, regardless of if it's winning or losing. He prefers to win, but
when you tilt, when you do start to get emotional about something, it's important to be able to recognize that. It's important to have the preparation in place so that you, number one, know when it's happening, and number two, have a plan for how to respond to it. Have people you can talk to, have a ritual you can perform to get yourself back in the zone in whatever way that is, whether it's between games or after games. And just having these things in place are going to help you in performing better. And that's an additional thing you can kind of add on to your set of skills that isn't just getting good at the game, which obviously also helps too, because you're just going to be tilting less if you're better. But the key is that there is the key is that there's just this whole package of different skills that you can have, and these sort of emotional control skills are just part of the package. So with that said, I think that's kind of the packet of advice we have for you guys. Hope you guys found it helpful. If you guys go to your next event and use any of this advice, we'd love to hear about it whenever events happen again. Which, we got the online events too, but it's really easy to take a bathroom break during your online events. That's no problem. So
there's no line, hopefully.
I guess it depends on where you live. So guys, with that said, that's the end of this episode 5. This is 5 of the MetaManiacs Show.
Crazy, it's flying by.
We're going pretty quick here. We are going to hop in now to our expanded episode and just go in a little more in depth in some of these. If you guys are watching or listening to this and you are not a patron on our Patreon, patreon.com/metamaniacs, you can become a patron for as low as $2 a month, and then you will have access to our expanded episodes, as well as other stuff we do. There's some behind-the-scenes updates we do. We've got some untap.in images that you can use if you're a patron of Untap and get to use a little playmat and deck sleeves and stuff. And we're occasionally going to post some unique videos that you can only find in there. We have at least one right now. But I think our big thing is these expanded episodes. So if you enjoy listening to this, go ahead and check out our Patreon. We would really appreciate your support. And obviously, we have the support of a bunch of amazing people right now who are going to be displaying just shortly after this in a little image after I'm done talking. And we couldn't, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you guys enough for all of the support you provide. It is absolutely incredible what we're able to do. We have some great plans coming up for the future to expand MetaManiacs and bring you guys all of the great TCG content you could hope for. So thank you guys so much. Thanks for watching. If you're on YouTube or if you're on iTunes or Google Podcast or all that stuff, subscribe. SoundCloud, TuneIn, Pandora eventually, but not right now. We're putting it everywhere we can. So make sure to subscribe however you can. Like the video, give us a 5-star rating, do all that stuff that you want to if you appreciate it, because it really does help us out
and
a
if
ton.
You hate it, also tell us. We'd love to improve.
Yep, give us some feedback. So that's all for this one, guys. We'll see you guys in the expanded episode to our patrons. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next week for another episode of the MetaManiacs Show. Thanks.